history. And as you all know, Big Mother resides in our collection, and we love her dearly, and we look after her for Patricia. It's a great thrill to have her here to launch a series of activities and public programs for dark cats and aloft Sky Whale. Now I should just tell you, the weather is picking up, and so the wind is moving Sky Whale around. So if Sky Whale does have to come down during the talk, we might have to move quite quickly. It's perfectly safe. However, we may need to move. Just be ready if the weather does change during the talk. But how wonderful to be under the shadow of Sky Whale. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Patricia Piccinini.
Thanks, Steve. That was a great intro. And we should thank these guys because it's amazing that Sky Whale is up at this time of the day. It's like balloons are down at 8 o'clock. Because as Steve told me, there's 5 tons of air in her. A huge sail. And they're tying her down. A little bit of wind and she'd be all over the place. And she'd be great. And so they've done a fantastic job of keeping her up for us. It's great coming back to Adelaide because I really feel that my work really connects to the people of this city. And it's wonderful being in this show, Dark Heart, because I think this work has got a lot of heart. I think a lot of people connect to her on a very emotional level. It's a heartfelt work from my point of view. I feel when I made her, I felt very it was a very deep thing for me to create her. And I'll explain how she came about. I was thinking about whales. And when people say that when you swim with a whale and you look into the eye of a whale, your life is never the same again. And that was the beginning of the work. That's why the eyes are so important with her. And I was thinking about how they live in an environment that's really difficult. Whales were land animals that went back into the sea. They were mammals that breathe and adapted to an incredibly arduous environment. I mean, it's cold down there. The blue whales are so big that we haven't ever even weighed one because they're so enormous. These whales became so gigantic and intelligent. They adapted in such a magnificent way that this story of nature and the way it adapts to every environment. Every single environment on our planet is another inspiration for the work, because I thought, okay, so if these hoofed donkey-type animals became whales, they could have easily gone into the air. It's just as difficult a place. They could have started to, their bones could have become hollow like birds' bones. They could have just taken up. It would be just as hard. And that's when I thought, right, what would a creature like that look like? And this is what I imagine she would look like. She might be a herbivore, like a cow, and she might produce a lot of gas, like cows do. And it might accumulate in these memories, and whales are mammals. That's part of the definition of a mammal, that they have memories and they have hair and they breastfeed their children. And maybe the gas that she collects lets her ascend. Maybe that's how she might work on a kind of physical level. But that's only one story. There could be many stories, and in fact there's no official story. I make up stories, but for this work there wasn't a real story, because she's an artwork that takes advantage of the idea of ballooning. Like, balloons just appear out of nowhere. And it's quite amazing that we can have her here for 2 hours, because generally generally you're walking your dog or you're washing the dishes and you see them outside and you think, oh wow, that's really auspicious. It's a special day. Today's going to be great because I've seen a balloon. And generally it means you're going to have great weather, actually, because you need great weather for ballooning. So I wanted that quality to be part of the artwork, that she just drops in your lives and just gives you this little burst of joy. And also this spectacle of this work is really important to me. Like, wow, she's magnificently huge, like the blue whale is. She's double the size of a normal balloon. The way that I came to make her was that the Centenary of Canberra asked me to do a work. In fact, it was Robin Archer who rang me up and said, Patricia, Canberra's got this amazing balloon culture and I'd like you to make a balloon. And for somebody like me, I could never make something like this. I can't fund it myself as a private artist. So it was an amazing opportunity. And I said, Robin, I'll do it, but it has to be part of my practice. I can't make a sculpture of Parliament House or Walter Burley Griffin. No matter how much I admire Marion Marnie and Walter Burley Griffin, I just can't do that. And she said, okay. And so I came up with this idea of this whale with 10 breasts, which was, to me, not that crazy. But to the minister, it was really quite crazy. And she said, no way are we going to fund this, absolutely no way, that people are going to hate it. And in fact, they ended up hating it, but then coming around to loving her. Anyway, Robin Archer went into bat for me, and she said, you've got to do it, it's about art. It's not about being politically correct, it's not about making something beautiful, it's not about something inoffensive. It is about ideas. It's about ideas about evolution, ideas about different life forms, how we relate to difference, ideas about maternity and nurturing, those kinds of ideas. And the minister turned around and said, if my job isn't worth, if I could be, if my job, if it's not worth this commission, then there's something wrong. And she let it happen, which was really fantastic. And so it is a public artwork in that I can't control her as well. Like usually when I make a work, I set it up in a gallery, turn the light on, move away, and I know that people will see what I want them to see. But with this, it's not the same. It's really stressful. So stressful. If it rains, if it's windy even a little bit, it's not on. For a control freak like me, it's really not good. I haven't slept for 3 nights. But in a way, it's part of her charm. And that's part of it. This public artwork is, when people see it, they not only do they not know what it is, like what is this creature, but they also don't know if it's an artwork. Like literally, because what's in the sky are usually advertisements for wineries, beer, mining companies, things like that. And they don't know that this medium could be used as art, and they don't know if it's trying to sell them something, and they can see that it's not. So usually when I make a sculpture, if it's made of bronze, and I do make sculptures out of bronze, even if I put it in like a junkyard, people would know it's an artwork. But with this, they don't even know it. So it's a truly enigmatic piece. And people have the opportunity to come up to it with no preconceived ideas of it. And so they even ask questions about what is art? And what is the value of art? And for me, if it gets people talking, then I'm successful. Like, I want this to be a catalyst for discussion, not only about art, but also about ideas to do with maternity, nurturing, and they're sort of images that I find are missing in the mainstream. Or if they're there, they're very flat images. They're not deep images. so when this is the way it was made, I went back after this conversation with Robin, and I went back to my studio and I thought about it for about 6 months. And then I came up with some drawings, and then they showed to the minister. She said okay, which is amazing. And then I 3D modelled it with Dennis Daniel in my studio. And then we sent the 3D model to Bristol. There are only 2 places in the world that make these special shaped balloons. And this is an aviation machine. It's a registered aircraft. I'm not, people could die in this. I don't want anyone to die in my model. Yeah, I know. Especially you, Steve, I really wouldn't want you to die. So it has to have, there are no safety belts. I've been in that, I'd be absolutely terrified. But anyway, so they took my model and they made this pattern. Now usually when they make these balloons, they're all the same shape, and that is because that's the perfect shape for ballooning. And in fact, that shape is inside here. And that's what Steve heats the air to go into. And all these parts, these appendages, are cold air, and they're heavy. And that's why this balloon can only have 3 people in it. Balloon this size can take about 20 people, but she's so heavy. And there's also 350 kilograms of nylon in her. So she's super heavy. She's hard to fly. She's difficult. And so they made it. It took them about a year, and they worked through Christmas to make this. They'd never done that. It was made by a group, it was all hand sewn by a group of women over a few months. This digital printing was also new to them. They'd never made a balloon that had to have a naturalistic feel to them. Usually balloons have got a kind of cartoon-like feel to them. They're just flat. So that was another big challenge, to print all this stuff and make it look natural. And then they sent it back to us here, and we did a flight in the Arapiles. And we chose to go to the Arapiles because I thought it was like a really beautiful backdrop for this work, which is, I think, in a lot of ways uniquely Australian. We have this amazing, stories to do with fauna. And we took some footage of her, and then we released it to the world. To ask me about it, but I haven't covered, because there's a lot, yeah?
Yeah, please. I sort of understand the breasts now.
Yeah.
But why the claws?
Oh, well, that's a throwback to the kind of clawed, mammal that roamed the earth before they went back into the sea. So it's a throwback to evolution. Like, for example, in our 3rd day of gestation, we have the same gills as fish. We have the same anatomy as fish. They have these sinuses here. They're kind of like gills, and they slowly develop into the lungs. So we embody evolution in ourselves as well. Yeah. We carry signs of evolution within us, and that's her very obvious one. These claws, yeah. And it's really fantastic to have her here outside of the museum, because it's also almost anachronistic, something from the past.